How's everybody doing?
Gio Rivera Lopez stands in front of a group of 24 or so people. A headband holds up her curly dark hair. She's briefing them on the day's assignments.
Elected officials are not just elected officials that represent us, but they're also the decision makers of our community.
At 22 years old, Gio is the field coordinator for Alianza for Progress. Their headquarters is in Kissimmee, a city near Orlando, Florida, with a large Hispanic population. Alianza's mission is twofold: educating Hispanics on how the political system works in the U.S. and getting them out to vote.
Our voices deserve to be voiced. Our voices deserve to be heard and respected, just like everyone else.
And their voices are starting to be heard more than ever. Why? Florida is the third most populous state, and close to 30% are Hispanics. In the upcoming midterm elections, Latino voters could deeply influence politics for years if they get out and vote.
What do you see out there when you're canvassing? What do you see, what's the response you get from the people?
Some people will say, oh no, I don't want to vote. You know, our government's corrupt, so my vote isn't going to matter. But then you see the opposite, like, wow, you guys are doing such great work. Thank you so much for coming to my door. Of course I'm going to go vote. We need to vote.
Florida, as it is in just about every election, is squarely in the national spotlight. There are two high-stakes races for U.S. Senate and governor. Florida's outgoing Republican Governor Rick Scott is trying to unseat longtime Democratic Senator Bill Nelson.
It's been a privilege to serve our country.
My mom worked 3 jobs to feed us kids.
The two men fighting for the governorship, former Republican Congressman Ron DeSantis and Democrat Andrew Gillum, who's the first black nominee for governor for a major party in the state's history.
I wouldn't be the person that I am today, and I plan to work as hard as I can.
This is going to be a priority for me, I think, being a caretaker for the environment.
Both Republicans, Scott and DeSantis, are huge supporters of President Trump. For a time, that seemed to be working to boost their campaigns. DeSantis had no reservation playing the Trump card.
Everyone knows my husband, Ron DeSantis, is endorsed by President Trump, but he's also an amazing dad. Ron loves playing with the kids.
Build the wall.
He reads stories.
Then Mr. Trump said, "You're fired." I love that part.
But that strategy is showing cracks. DeSantis is struggling to gain traction against Gillum. Even Scott, who once had a comfortable lead over Nelson for the U.S. Senate seat, now finds himself in a close one. So, what happened? Is it a sign of the so-called blue wave that will sweep Republicans out of office and Democrats in? For Republicans in Florida, it's just not as easy a road as in the recent past. Polls show independents, young voters, and Hispanics trending to the left. But the election could turn on the vote of the large number of Hispanics registered as independents. Marcos Villar is director of Alianza.
There's a lot of people that in the Hispanic community that are in the undecided, independent, no party affiliation segment. It's about a third of us, right? So it's a tricky vote to kind of, and I think a lot of the parts of Florida are, it's the South. It's still the South. And we have a situation where the politics of the South have been defined by the black-white, dynamic. Yeah. And here comes this new demographic, a Latino demographic that is sort of changing the equation. And neither side has quite figured out how to deal with that.
Yes.
Amy Mercado is a state representative. She's Puerto Rican. Many in her district are too. It's a district where 60% of the people are Hispanic.
What gets your blood boiling the most?
What doesn't at this point? Honestly, I'll have to say it's the blatant disregard of our president and the plight of the folks that are still suffering and dealing with the recovery. And some of them haven't even gotten to a recovery stage in Puerto Rico.
A recent study found rebuilding Puerto Rico is a key issue for 64% of Florida Hispanic voters. Since Hurricane Maria devastated Puerto Rico last year, tens of thousands have moved here to the mainland, but voting is not their priority.
So those that are coming from the island, especially post-Maria, you're talking about a group of people that are pretty traumatized. So elections are not necessarily their thing, right? It's not something that they're thinking about. It's not something that they feel is necessarily important at the moment. What's important is housing, work, finding their kids' school, making sure there's some stability.
The challenge is convincing people their vote is meaningful. The toughest group to crack are young people, millennials, who historically don't vote in large enough numbers to make a difference.
You're 22 years old.
Yes, sir.
Millennial. Millennials get a bad rap. That they really don't care about going out and voting, that they got a lot of other stuff on their minds and on their plates. What do you say to that? What are you seeing out there?
What I'm seeing in millennials now is they have a lot of emotion, right? We have a lot of anger. We have a lot of passion with whatever it is, right? So I feel like we're gonna stand up. You know, I genuinely think that we're gonna stand up.
We hear so much talk about the millennial vote. Do you think the millennials are more inspired this time around?
As a mom of several millennials, I can understand where that comes from. Yeah, I do. I think we'll get quite a few millennials, but they're not going to be the sole block, right? All of these pieces play part of that puzzle and are getting us to where we need to be. We need to engage them. We need to engage Hispanics of all ages.
That is what groups like Alianza are doing.
I'm putting it very basic.
Before leaving for their canvassing area, team members review their script in a car. Miguel Diaz is the veteran. Kiara Balasquide is new and young, just 21.
Pero I just don't speak Spanish completely fluently.
Okay.
I do understand it, so
Okay.
when I go to the doors, I say it in English.
Canvassing is old school, walking the streets, going door to door.
Buenas tardes. Hola y disculpe, señora Aida Milian. Mi nombre es Miguel Ángel, yo represento la campaña Respeta a mi gente. No estoy vendiendo nada ni tengo que ver con ningún partido político, pero estamos visitando la comunidad hispana para hablarles sobre la importancia de votar y hacerle una pregunta.
For Kiara, this is different. The group the canvassers are targeting are older voters. This is not the way you reach millennials.
It just takes the right motivation for a millennial to go out and vote.
So what is that motivation?
Technology, social media, posting constantly, motivating people, you know, that takes a really big impact. We use our cell phones every day. We don't like to open doors, for example, but we do react very big to social media. Social media is something, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram.
There is no better example than New York's Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. Running for a congressional seat, she pulled off a stunning primary victory over a longtime Democratic incumbent.
I was born in a place where your zip code determines your destiny.
Social media was the backbone of her campaign. In the wake of her victory, experts have written that she speaks the language of social media.
All right, everyone. If you're on Instagram, hop on Facebook to watch the video teaser.
Her campaign used social media to organize rallies, recruit volunteers, and create content. Her Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram accounts have hundreds of thousands of followers. With only a $300,000 primary budget, she campaigned on the streets and in social media. Her victory may be an isolated event, but across the U.S. there are more than 15 million Latinos ages 18 to 24 who are eligible to vote. Some surveys seem to suggest their numbers at the voting booths and millennials in general could be eye-opening in November. Kiara couldn't agree more.
Oh yeah, for sure. I get goosebumps talking about it because it's true. Millennials, we really do have power, and you have to go out there and vote. It's very important.
And you think they're going to make a difference at the ballot box in November?
Oh yeah, we're going to make a huge impact.
But most politicians have yet to figure out how to genuinely resonate with young eligible voters. Charlie Rodriguez is chairman of Puerto Rico's Democratic Party. He's in Tampa, Florida, to help encourage voter registration. For him, the millennial vote remains questionable.
They mostly don't turn out to vote, especially not in primaries and not so much in midterms. When they get highly motivated is in the presidential elections and not necessarily all the time. That's why most elections, candidates have to put a lot of effort with the senior citizens, because senior citizens really turn out to vote. They're not the majority of the population, they're not the majority of the voters, but since they turn out to vote and the others don't, they become a striking force in any election.
This is Ybor City in Tampa, famous for its Cuban restaurants, cafes, and cigar stores. The Hispanic population here is only now beginning to flex its political muscle.
Here, this is my grandfather, Victoriano. This is 1956, and this is young Fidel Castro here in Tampa. And Father Victoriano, this is 1956.
Patrick Montega is Cuban-American. He's the third-generation publisher of La Gaceta, a weekly newspaper that has been around since 1922. The walls of his offices are a tapestry of photos of well-known politicians.
My father and George I, my grandfather and Hubert Humphrey, my father and Lyndon Johnson, Ford.
The challenge in Tampa, he says, is galvanizing the Hispanic vote. This year may, he thinks, be different.
The potential of the Puerto Rican vote within the Hispanic vote is huge if it comes to meet its potential. Same thing with the Hispanic vote in the state of Florida. You know, it always plays a pivotal role, but how big, you know, a role will it play, and how many of them come out? And in midterms, they haven't been the group that comes out in strength. But this time, there's a lot of factors that people think is going to move that needle.
What are the issues that Hispanics in Florida in particular are interested in?
I think there's an issue that's always there, and I think it's an issue of respect. You know, are you going to treat us as equals? Are you going to treat Puerto Ricans like U.S. citizens, or are you going to treat them like second-class people? You know, are you going to talk down about our whole group when you're trying to talk about immigration? And so I think the respect issue is always there. The Republicans have done a great job of trying to respect the Cuban exile population. That's why that group has been very solid with them.
Yanko Maceda takes a deep puff on his cigar. Yanko came from Cuba when he was 15 years old. He worked hard and now owns Tabanero Cigars, a boutique shop in Ybor City.
If you can see Garbe on my right, he's bunching right now. He's doing the inside of the cigar.
The cigar rollers he employs all came from Cuba. They work 5 days a week, sometimes 6. Yanko devotes all his time to building his business. No time to talk politics. It's not wise either, he says.
Well, we used to go to school and they teach me things that when I came here, I realized they were all not true. So I try to keep myself away from all that. When you're conducting business, you got to be really careful how to give opinions about, you know,
about politics, right, right.
And you have to be careful, Patrick Montega warns, to keep expectations and excitement in check until after the election.
There's a blue wave. Just can't tell you how tall it is.
Or whether the work by groups like Alianza has paid off.